PSVR 2 released a little over a week ago, and the reviews have been amazing from just about everyone, minus a few out-of-the-box issues that some people have experienced. With launch titles like GT 7, Resident Evil 8, and Horizon Call of the Mountain, it feels like PlayStation really is all in on VR and its future. They seem like they want to be a very big player in the space, and that slot is still very open as far as I'm concerned. So the question is, what does PlayStation have to do next to really solidify that? Now, I have a few things I think PlayStation will need to do to begin with, just to ensure the success of VR in the long run. Currently, there are three big players in the VR space, those being Meta, PlayStation, and Valve, and out of these three, I see Sony and Valve more or less being big on the software side of things when it comes to VR, and Meta, just due to the fact that they're the easiest and cheapest to get your hands on, more than likely is going to come out on top for hardware. Now, obviously not for enthusiasts, but the general public for the most part. Now, don't get me wrong, PlayStation and Valve do have amazing hardware, but again, Meta is just cheaper. That being said, with PlayStation's new first-party game, I think we're truly seeing the absolute second AAA VR game we've ever seen next to Half-Life Alyx. Now, this makes me feel like PlayStation's pushing a lot harder than they did for PSVR 1, and I believe since they used a first-party IP for PSVR 2, they may have a few more first-party titles in mind. If PlayStation is making a serious push into the VR market with first-party IPs, that could make all the difference in the long run for VR. Now, don't get me wrong, PlayStation VR 1 did have some first-party PlayStation exclusives, and at one point had a God of War VR game that was in development. Unfortunately, it was later scrapped just because the controllers didn't really work well, from my understanding. Now, if what I'm saying is true, we could see Sony actually bring back a lot of the IPs that they haven't used in over a decade. We could see games like SOCOM or Killzone bring AAA VR shooter, to PSVR 2 and kind of solidify Sony's first-party IPs as a mainstay of VR, like I assume they want to be. Another thing they could do is, even if they want to keep it similar to what they did with Call of the Mountain and kind of tell side stories of maybe a side character or the main protagonist. Maybe they do something with The Last of Us. They do The Last of Us Fireflies, where they go through Tommy's story and what happened with his time in the Fireflies. So realistically, they have so much that they can work with, and I think that it would behoove Sony to talk to all of their first-party studios and just say, hey, look, do you guys have an idea for any type of virtual reality experience? Get a team on it, whip it up, and we're going to start pushing this very hard, because I think first-party Sony is just going to cause a massive commotion in the VR space, and overall is going to be great for everyone. The next thing Sony will most likely do if they are serious about VR is doing what they do with their other first-party titles and port them to PC. I 100% expect this is going to happen for three reasons. And before you say, well, Sony's selling the PSVR 2 at a loss, they need to get people into their ecosystem if they want to recoup their money. Just listen to these reasons. So, first of all, it helps with market saturation and gets more people into VR in general. And as you all know, with their first-party games, people love their first-party games. And if the proof of concept of Call of the Mountain being so polished has anything to say, you know that Sony is going to have a very well-polished VR experience. And with that, I assume that they would do the same release window that they already do with their flat screen games, which is 6 to 18 months after its initial release on the PlayStation 5. So I don't see why they wouldn't do this, especially since they are going to be growing their player base for those games. Now, like I just said, people love Sony first parties, and overall, they have always been a great experience if you've given them a chance. They're very story driven, very well put together, and just overall very beautiful. And I think that this will play a massive role when Sony uses their first party exclusive VR games as a leveraging tool in negotiations with more than likely Valve to ensure that all of their VR games also come to the PSVR 2. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not necessarily talking about Half-Life Alyx. I already think that that's been negotiated. I have a feeling that they've already talked about it. They said, look, this is what we want, make it happen. Obviously, we've been playing nice with you guys, and maybe it'll be a full year after PlayStation VR 2 has been out that we get a Half-Life Alyx announcement. But again, I highly feel very strongly that we are more than likely already done and confirmed getting Half-Life Alyx on the PlayStation VR 2. What sources do I have? None. But I know how Valve works, and they want their game on other platforms because the last reason, people like money, especially companies. Companies want to make money. And what does money do? It helps fund future VR projects that otherwise don't get the funding. And since the market of capable devices that can actually run AAA VR now is getting bigger, I think that we will more than likely see a big transition from the, Quest 2-esque games that we get graphically to more AAA games overall. So with all that being said, what do you think? Do you think PlayStation will bring their first party IPs for more AAA VR games? Do you think they'll partner with Valve to guarantee cross-saturation of VR on both platforms? Or do you think something else will happen? Let me know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed the video, please make sure to leave a like down below. My name is Buttersomething, and if you want more VR games, news, and reviews, make sure to subscribe. I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.